It opened on a sunny beach where we met lifeguard Josh and his best friend Rory. Josh had just slept off a hangover, and Rory teased him for proposing to Tina, Rory's sister. The two weren't just co-workers, they were soon-to-be brothers-in-law. Tina and Josh were planning to move to Singapore after their wedding. The young couple shared a sweet moment on the shore, while Rory paddled out to set a marker buoy. But tragedy struck in an instant. From the watchtower, another lifeguard saw a great white shark attack an older swimmer, but couldn't warn Rory in time. Josh jumped on a jet ski and raced to save his friend, but he arrived just a few seconds too late. The shark exploded through Rory's surfboard and dragged him under. Josh could only watch, powerless and drowning in guilt. His relationship with Tina fell apart. They broke off their engagement soon after Tina left Australia. A year passed. Josh gave up lifeguarding and started working at the Oceania supermarket in Coolangatta. One day, by coincidence, he ran into Tina again. She had returned to Australia, but now she had a new boyfriend, Steven. Meanwhile, a different kind of trouble was brewing inside the supermarket. A young woman named Haimey got caught shoplifting by a security guard. Her boyfriend Ryan, who worked at the store, tried to take the blame for her. The store manager, Jessup, fired Ryan on the spot and called the police. The police officer who showed up was Haimey's dad, Todd. Tension rose quickly between father and daughter. At the same time, two teenagers, Kyle and his girlfriend Heather, snuck into the underground car park to make out. Their dog, Bully, napped in the back seat. Just then, two masked robbers, Doyle and Kirby, stormed into the supermarket with guns. They tried to rob the store and took everyone hostage. But before things could get worse, something far more terrifying happened. Fish suddenly started beaching themselves on the shore. The seawater pulled back quickly. Tourists ran for their lives. Then, a massive tsunami crashed onto the beach. People on the beach were swallowed in seconds. The powerful waves surged inland without warning. There was no time for anyone on the streets to escape. The raging water flooded the underground supermarket completely. When the chaos finally settled, the store had become a ruined wasteland. Bodies floated everywhere. The scene was heartbreaking. But a few lucky people survived the disaster. Josh was the first to resurface. More survivors climbed onto the shelves. They saw the rising water and realized the entire coastline was underwater. There would be no rescue anytime soon. They knew they had to save themselves. Someone needed to check if the exits were blocked. Tina volunteered to go first. Her boyfriend Steven followed her. They swam toward the front entrance. At the same time, security guard Collins dove into the water, heading toward the back door. But shortly after they left, the others saw something strange. A doll in the water started moving on its own. It disappeared under the surface, then reappeared on the other side. Josh instantly sensed danger. He shouted for everyone to stay away from the water. The three swimmers came back just in time. Sadly, both exits were completely blocked, but Josh was more worried about the terrifying thing hiding underwater. Seeing Josh so nervous, Tina and Steven hurried to swim faster. With Josh's help, they made it back safely to the shelves. Collins was still standing in the water. He had just opened his mouth to ask what was going on when a powerful force suddenly yanked him under. He struggled back to the surface for a moment, but the water around him was already turning red. Collins let out a painful scream for help. Everyone was terrified by the horrifying scene. Something in the water was clearly attacking him. As Collins was dragged toward the shelves by an unknown creature, Haimey quickly reached out to grab him. But in the very next second, Collins went completely still. His body felt weightless. It turned out the creature had torn him in half. Haimey screamed and immediately let go. Everyone stared in horror. What kind of monster could be this brutal? Before they could recover from the shock, the creature began slamming into the shelves. Naomi, one of the survivors, accidentally fell into the water. Luckily, Doyle reacted fast and pulled her back out just in time. Then, the terrifying creature slowly surfaced. To their shock, it was a great white shark. It was at least 12 feet long. Clearly, the tsunami had brought the shark into the supermarket. It was now obvious. Escaping this place wouldn't be easy. Meanwhile, the underground parking lot had also been flooded. Kyle and Heather were trapped in their car. The water had already reached the roof, but luckily, it hadn't gotten inside yet. They were safe for the moment, but they knew they couldn't stay there for long. Heather quickly opened the sunroof. Kyle stuck his head out and looked around. That's when he spotted another survivor, Ryan. They were thrilled to see someone else. But as they greeted him, Heather suddenly noticed a giant shadow moving in the water. Kyle ducked back inside to check, only to see another massive great white shark approaching. They were frozen with fear, but their dog, Bully, started barking non-stop. The shark heard them and began ramming the car. Kyle and Heather stuck their heads out, yelling for Ryan to help. As the shark swam toward them again, Ryan shouted for them to stay inside the car. The shark hit so hard, the windows started leaking. If the shark didn't eat them, the rising water would soon drown them. To save them, Ryan came up with a risky plan. Fighting back nausea and fear, he cut off a severed hand from a corpse, and stirred it in the water. The smell of blood quickly caught the shark's attention. Kyle and Heather took the chance to climb out of the car and jumped into the water, swimming towards safety. But the splash made the shark turn around. It came after them. With Kyle's help, Heather managed to climb onto another car just in time, but the shark was getting closer. Desperate, Kyle threw Bully into the water as a distraction. That move saved his life, but it sparked Heather's anger. She yelled at Kyle for heartlessly sacrificing his dog to save himself. Kyle was speechless. He couldn't believe their relationship meant less than a dog. Seeing they were safe, Ryan began searching for an exit. Unfortunately, the parking lot exit was blocked. Their only choice was to head for the supermarket stairs. Ryan decided to climb along a fire pipe to reach them and lead the way. But as he struggled along the pipe, the missing shark suddenly reappeared beneath it. Things were about to get very dangerous. And then, something went horribly wrong. Ryan quickly became exhausted. Then he lost his grip and fell straight into the water. The shark swam over immediately. It was about to devour him. Kyle rushed over and pulled him back into the car. But the shark, having missed its target, slammed into the vehicle. Kyle lost his balance and fell into the water. Just as they reached out to help him, Kyle suddenly vanished beneath the surface. In the blink of an eye, the shark swallowed him whole. Heather was devastated by Kyle's death. She and Ryan froze, unsure what to do next. Suddenly, they heard a familiar bark. To their shock, Bully had survived. Heather called out to him, and Bully bravely jumped into the water. Ryan quickly pulled the dog out. Heather hugged Bully with joy, forgetting Kyle's death almost instantly. Back in the supermarket, the others were discussing how to escape, but out of nowhere, the entire store shook violently. A loose, high-voltage cable fell from above, almost landing in the water below. Everyone broke into a cold sweat. If the electric cable touched the seawater, they would all be electrocuted instantly. Todd, whose leg was injured, quickly asked store manager Jessup where the breaker was. They had to shut off the power before it was too late. The water level was still rising, and if they waited, they were doomed. Jessup said the breaker was in the storage room near the back door. Josh stepped up right away, volunteering to swim there and shut it off. But Tina, his ex-girlfriend, stopped him. She was worried that the wound on his arm might attract the shark. Steven suddenly came up with an idea. He planned to turn a metal rack into a shark-proof suit. He wrapped himself in the netting, added a long breathing tube, and covered his head with a shopping basket. The outfit looked ridiculous, but surprisingly foolproof. Without hesitation, Steven dove into the water. The others held onto the breathing hose, ready to pull him back if needed. But after just a few steps, the shark picked up the scent and swam toward him. To everyone's surprise, it didn't attack. It gave a few testing bumps, then swam away. Apparently, the shark didn't like biting into metal. More importantly, it had just eaten Collins and wasn't hungry. As the shark disappeared into the distance, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Steven quickly picked up speed underwater and reached the storage room safely. He was just inches away from the breaker, but the breathing hose wasn't long enough. With success right in front of him, Steven took a deep breath and yanked the hose off. He swam forward fast and finally shut off the power, but now he was in serious danger. His oxygen was gone, and the weight of his gear held him down. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't reach the surface. In the end, he sank slowly in despair and suffocated to death. Josh pulled the hose back and realized Steven wasn't coming back. He instantly knew what had happened. Tina was heartbroken, but Steven's sacrifice had kept them safe. To protect everyone from the shark attack, Doyle pulled a sharp knife from the water and started turning a mop into a weapon. Naomi, who he had saved earlier, began to admire him. But escaping was still their biggest problem. Josh glanced up by chance and spotted a way out, the air vent above their heads. He quickly found a rope. With Doyle's help, he managed to hook it up. Jessup rolled up his sleeves, volunteering to climb first. Once the rope was secure, Josh and Doyle worked together to hoist him up. Just as Jessup opened the vent cover, he saw something horrifying. A swarm of sand crabs crowded the vent. Panicking, Jessup slipped and dangled mid-air. As he tried to climb back up, the shark leapt up and bit off Jessup's entire lower half. In the chaos, someone else fell into the water. To distract the shark, Doyle tossed Jessup's remaining body into the water. At the same time, he rescued Kirby from drowning. After losing another survivor, Doyle knew they couldn't just sit around and wait to die. If they didn't act fast, the shark would eat them all one by one. He noticed some raw pork and a large metal hook nearby. An idea came to his mind. They could hang the meat on the hook and use it as bait. If the shark took the bait, they could use the chance to escape, but someone had to swim over and bring the hook and pork back. Josh didn't hesitate. He volunteered right away, but Todd stopped him. Even though he had an injured leg, Todd wanted to help while he still could. As a cop and a father, he wanted to give his daughter, Haimey, a chance to survive. Before leaving, Todd told Josh to protect Haimey no matter what. But just as Todd was about to move, Haimey suddenly jumped into the water. She knew very well, if her wounded father went, it would be a mission with no return. The splash alerted the shark, and it swam straight toward Haimey. Everyone quickly made noise to distract the shark. Luckily, she managed to jump over a counter at the last second and narrowly avoided being attacked. As the shark opened its bloody mouth to strike again, Haimey grabbed a hammer and smashed it hard against the shark's head. The shark, hurt and angry, swam away. Haimey used the chance to grab the pork and hook. As she reached for the rope Doyle threw to her, the shark suddenly came back for another attack, but once again it failed. Doyle pulled Haimey out just in time. They quickly got to work building the trap. Doyle attached the hook to a rope, while Josh tied the other end to a shelf. Then they hung the bait and dropped it into the water, quietly waiting for the shark to bite. The plan looked solid, but things didn't go as expected. Maybe the shark had eaten too many fresh humans. It wasn't interested in the pork. It glanced at the bait and swam away. Everyone was disappointed. Kirby completely lost his patience. He knew the shark only cared about live prey now, so he pulled out a gun, grabbed Naomi, and hooked the bait through her clothes. He wanted to use her as live bait. Everyone was furious at Kirby's cruelty. Ignoring their protests, Kirby kicked Naomi into the water. Josh tried to help, but Kirby pointed his gun at him. The shark had already noticed Naomi, but just then, a spear shot through Kirby's back. It was Doyle, Kirby's own partner, who had decided to end his madness. Josh and Tina quickly pulled Naomi back onto the shelf. Doyle stabbed the hook deep into Kirby's body and shoved him into the water. The shark took the bait and swallowed Kirby whole, but the hook got stuck in its mouth. The shark was finally trapped. Everyone jumped into the water, ready to escape. But just then, Haimey heard a strange banging sound above her. It was coming from the fire pipe. It turned out Ryan was still alive in the parking garage, and he was hitting the pipe to get attention. Everyone realized they weren't the only survivors. Josh and Haimey didn't hesitate. They swam toward the basement. To stop more water from flooding down, they shut the stairwell door behind them. Then they swam down the stairs. When they opened the basement door, the stairwell water rushed in like a wave. They saw someone standing on top of a car and quickly swam toward them. On the roof of the car, Ryan and Heather were freaking out. They shouted a warning. "There's a shark in the water!" At that moment, the shark spotted new prey. But just in time, Josh and Doyle climbed onto the roof of another car and avoided being attacked. Haimey looked at the familiar car in front of her. She realized it was her father Todd's vehicle. Inside, there was a shotgun. As soon as Josh heard that, he jumped into the water without hesitation. He dove into the car to search for weapons. The others stayed back and made loud noises to distract the shark. The shark noticed something was off and started swimming over. Luckily, it was drawn away by the other sounds. Josh finally found a shotgun and a taser. He climbed back up to the roof of the car. He loaded the shotgun, took aim at the shark, and fired, but he missed. The strong recoil knocked him off balance, and he fell straight into the water. The shark charged at him. Josh knew he had no choice but to fight. Just as the shark lunged at him, Josh aimed the barrel at its chin. A loud blast rang out underwater. The water turned bright red in an instant. The shark was finally dead. Meanwhile, the others checked the supermarket's front door, still hoping to find a way out. But it was completely blocked. A large truck had crashed into the entrance, leaving no space to escape. Then Doyle noticed the truck's battery was leaking electricity. He looked over at a nearby electrical box, and an idea hit him. He planned to connect the battery with a cable and use a high-voltage spark to cause an explosion. As Doyle began setting it up, Josh and the others arrived through the window. Doyle quickly explained the plan and told everyone to get out of the water. He warned them that he was about to power up the line, but just then, the ground started to shake again. Thankfully, no one was hurt after the tremor stopped, but a new threat was about to hit. The great white shark had broken free. Josh spotted it and shouted for everyone to get out of the water. Before the shark could strike, Doyle climbed up the cable to safety, but the shark turned and headed straight for Josh. Josh tried to use the shotgun again, but at the worst possible moment, it jammed. With no time to waste, Josh ran, jumped, and grabbed a steel pipe overhead. He hung from it with his legs, pulled out the taser, and waited. As the shark leapt out of the water, Josh pulled the trigger. The taser hit the shark right on the nose. Electricity surged through its massive body. The shark thrashed wildly, then went completely still. At the same moment, Doyle flipped the main switch. A huge explosion followed. The blast created a way out. Everyone rushed toward the exit. After surviving the tsunami, they stepped into a destroyed world. Rescue teams had already arrived. Helicopters circled overhead, searching for more survivors.